prepared this time. All the announcements have gone out. Sound of applause. And we are ready to start. I have in here with me Ashtarothi McLeod and Maverick Jeffrey. Go, Maverick.
How are we doing?
Good. Thanks
Happy to
for
be here.
hanging out. Okay, so what do we want to cover today? A couple things, of course. In just a few minutes, I want to go through a list of my recommendations for CSM 14. I've never done recommendations before, except maybe Suetonia. I think I vouched for Suetonia one time because he's just knows the nuts and bolts so well. But this time I'm doing a full list. It's a personal list, not from Talking in Stations. So let's be clear about that. This is my personal list that I'm putting out, partly because I have to be strategic, but also because there's some people I actually believe in. So we'll see who those are. And I also want to talk to Ashtarothi about what he's up to with invasions, because I think he's figured out some cool stuff.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun yesterday.
Yeah, on a what?
Well, we tried several different ships, but I've now settled on the Kronos.
Kronos, which is good because
I already had the police skin, and so it's like when I went and asked them, like, what are people using? And they're like, Kronos. I'm like, you're giving me an excuse to buy a Kronos?
I actually really like that ship, like look wise. The kind of like the wing bridge, like on the top, looks so much so.
It is a very good ship on many different levels.
Mike Azaria is in the audience, everybody. He's running for CSM, as you may or may not know. Jade Cougar. If you ever heard Lost in Eve, that's Jade Cougar from Lost in Eve. Good podcast.
I don't know. Got somebody else that's running for CSM, right?
Probably. I'm just going off the stuff I've seen. Just
talking about you.
Oh, me. Yeah, I am running for CSM. And I partly wish I wasn't. Okay, but let's go through the index real quick. So today we're going to cover CSM, Matterall's list of who to pick for CSM. We're going to talk about invasions, and then we'll get to some news if we can. We're starting a bit early, but I want to actually end early as well. So that's what's going on. If you guys want to hang out, you're welcome to jump in and lurk in our channel. We're in chill streaming. It's open to the public. But we are not unmuting everybody all at once. Otherwise, it becomes a big mess. So we'll unmute strategically. And yeah, so I actually want to start with invasions instead of the CSM stuff. If you want to talk about that, Ash. Unless you don't.
I'm dealing with the bacon right now.
Yeah, the bacon, right? The bacon. Forgot about the bacon. All right. Ashtarothi is actually a magician. He's turning raw bacon into cooked bacon or edible bacon. And so we'll let him do that.
Also known as cooking bacon.
What you should know, though, is that Talking in Station has done some CSM interviews. I hope that you are hearing those or have access to them now through either our Discord or through our website or through your RSS feed for podcasts, whatever your favorite one is. How's that going? McLeod, you're involved with that.
Sorry, hang on. What?
Are you cooking bacon too? Like,
no, I'm not cooking bacon. I am doing other things as well.
Right,
like I am doing like podcasts right now, or the interviews and stuff.
All right.
But sorry, what was the
okay.
question?
No, I'll come back to you. Let me talk to.
Oh my God! Just tell me the question.
How are the CSM interviews going that we've put out? We want to tell people about that process, what that's like.
Process is pretty good. Like process wise is pretty good. Like you can only really kind of really use the stuff that you kind of given. It's kind of tough to sort of to say, oh, your audio was kind of terrible. Can you come back in and do the same thing over and over again until we actually get something good? Like, nah, like people come in, do the interviews. Like if you kind of get the audio that you get and you make do with what you have. So like hopefully the audio that people hear is like, is definitely, I consider it to be good enough not to give you ear cancer, which is good. Like that's my minimum requirement.
It's pretty low.
I mean, it's pretty low, but like I think that if you hear the recordings or
Tell 'em-
basically like hear the finished product, you'll probably be quite
tell the
you'll be all
fans
right.
tell the fans some behind the scenes shenanigans where you and I disagreed.
So yeah, um,
Go ahead,
so
you can tell them anything. It's
all
totally
right, all right, all right, all right. So the initially when we came to sort of deciding how we were going to do the interviews, it was like, oh, we could potentially have to do 44 of these. So, like, I basically said to them like, I can't go through every second of the recordings and scrub them for anything that doesn't sound too great, kind of thing. So it would literally have to be like, the recording's going to have to be good. They're going to have to be pretty much like a one take thing, and then I'll kind of like I'll do my thing, but I won't be listening to the whole recording to get rid of every single like thing, because we're doing 44. We could potentially be doing 44 of them eventually. It seems as though we're not going to be doing 44 of them, but like that's just because some of the candidates obviously seem like it's not worth their while. So, but that's up to them, to figure,
Oh, did you actually
to make it.
the TIS get turned down by people?
Well, it's not turned down as such. It's just they never got in touch. So yeah, it takes two to tango, right? So if they don't want to tango, then that's up to them.
I think if you're in a field of 44 or whatever it is, you should understand that you're going to be you going out there and making yourself stand up above the rest.
Exactly. You have to be proactive on this. Like, we will meet you halfway, but you have to be proactive on this.
But how would they have known to appeal to TIS to get an interview? Like what was the initial announcement? What was because 2 years ago and
Well,
the last 2 years, I went into game and wrote everybody directly that was on that list and sent them an in-game email so that they knew that if they wanted to, they could have an interview.
I mean, as far as I know, we have sent emails out to people, like introductory emails to people, in order to actually get the ball rolling on that one. If they haven't got back to us, then like that sucks to be them, sort of thing. But obviously, there's some people in there that would consider themselves to not have to worry about that sort of thing. Like, for example, Arith. Like, I shock horror. Shock horror. Arith didn't get in touch with us about getting an interview.
Shocking.
I know, right? But yeah, so we've gone through some interviews. Like, we basically said that we like for in order to basically do as much of them as possible. We weren't going to be editing them or going through them like meticulously. And then Matterall decided that it would be a really great idea for him to do his interview outside on AirPods, because that was a great idea.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. I still cleaned up the audio, so it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
He didn't think it was possible. He didn't think it was possible. But then again, if you've ever had your own voice recorded, you are like 1,000 times more analytical about whether that's good or not. Compared to like anyone else who's listening. So obviously, Matterall kind of contacted me going, this recording is shit, etc., etc. Can we pull it down and all that? And I'm like, and I'm literally like, dude, no. You're the one who decided to record it on AirPods. That's up to you. That's your mistake.
It was a really weird situation because we don't like to let anything go out that's low quality, because I've heard podcasts that have had like terribly high semblance, which everything is like, and you're like, oh, I can't listen to this. So it hurts your ears, but you want to hear what they're saying, but it hurts your ears. And so you're like, oh, forget it. And
talking about sibilance, actually, and let's follow my my dunking of Artemis's voice by talking about Jurius's voice.
Whose voice?
Because I don't know, Jurius. Because I don't know what he did or how he changed or maneuvered himself around his microphone or something, but like he did something to his setup in some way, shape, or form that made his sound, his voice, super, like ridiculously sibilant, and like just to give you an indication as to how sibilant it was, I had to put no less than 3 DSs on his voice in various different forms to bring it in line with what I considered to be not ear cancer, as I said previously.
Yikes. Yeah, sibilance is a terrible thing to listen to. It hurts your ears, and so we definitely want to wash that out. But this one, the one I recorded, had dropouts where my voice would just drop out, and then I would come back in, and it was just very jarring. And I just thought, that's bad quality. Let's pull that down. We don't put out bad quality. And then the situation was, well, I've recused myself from this process, so it's up to McLeod, it's up to Artemis, and I was saying, like, I want to pull it not on a content, not that I did badly on an interview and I want it off the site. It's more like, this sucks, the quality's bad. I didn't realize that. And then
it was funny actually, because you were like, "Oh, I think your gating is like cutting my voice off and stuff," and I was like, I was there thinking to myself, unlikely, but let's just check anyway.
Yeah.
And I was like, I checked, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take everything off, and then I'm going to cut. I'm going to print that. I'm going to send that to Matterall, and then he can judge whether my gating is still too much.
Yeah, I totally blame McLeod first. Look what you did! Look what you did to me with your filters.
And then when you started being like, oh, I think it's still getting my voice a bit, I was like, yeah, there's no gating or anything going on in that whatsoever. That is just purely your AirPods.
So then I was like, it was almost like McLeod saying, sit back in your seat. And so I sat back down, and I was like, all right, whatever. It is what it is. It's, it's a temporary thing. It'll pass, and it won't really be referenced in the future. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we got somebody writing me that was like, hey, great interview. Really liked it. And I wrote him saying, did it disturb you? Did the quality of the recording disturb you? And he's like, no, I didn't notice. And then like 2 or 3 other people said like they didn't notice. And so I don't know if they were just being nice or whatever, but it wasn't up to me. So even if I wanted to change it, and I would have, I didn't. Oh, Dirk McGurk's here.
We decided to hey Dirk. We decided basically to be like, you know what? We can't do a no do-overs, enforcement of the rules if we basically give Matterall a free pass on that one. Like that just seems wrong.
So I just want to reiterate, like, the process has been very fair. It's run by McLeod, upstanding citizen McLeod, and Artemis. And even with me banging on their door to fix my recording, they're like, nope, you recorded it, you own it. So there it is. All right.
Change your answers, maybe.
Yeah. Could you just insert this answer? It's a little clear. Okay.
Yeah, like going from random AirPod kind of quality to sudden like studio quality, that wouldn't like confuse people at all. But I would like to say that it wasn't just me and Artemis doing it. Like Carneros pitched in, obviously Ashrothi pitched in, Karate Magic pitched in, Ron pitched in, Silver pitched in. Like, Artemis did a lot of the some of the recordings of the introductions and like a lot of the kind of like scheduling for everybody. Obviously, all the people who did the interviews were took the time out to do them and formulated the questions and stuff like that. So that's really cool. Like
the guys from Streamfleet helped out for
yes.
Yes, of course.
Raiden did the interviews, and he was very good.
Sorry, I forgot about Raiden because I was looking at a list that didn't actually have Raiden's name.
There's a lot of people to thank. And we should say that these interviews are now wrapping up. They need to be put out well in advance of the actual first day of voting when most people vote. That way everybody gets a chance to catch up and listen to them, with 2 or 3 days in advance, so that when they vote on day one, there's not anybody left behind. There have been years where candidates' interviews had come out the day after or 2 days after the election had already started, and we just never want that unfairness to be there. So we're rushing to get these all up and out the door, and that's why you're seeing them in large batches.
Yep.
Yeah. And also, again, Raiden from Streamfleet was selected as someone who could interview TIS guys, because we had 3 guys that were going to do it. we could have interviewed each other and it would have been fine, I think, but it's just one of those appearance things.
You just didn't want to be interviewed by me. Intimidated.
I do
I
want
know.
to be interviewed by you. I'm thinking this next wow, this next season of just two guys talking about EVE Online with no moderation, no interview, no moderation or anything like that. And you and Dirk come to mind as people that I want to sit with and just talk about EVE Online at length for an hour and just do what we do all day long. But record it because such good content comes out of that.
So make a podcast then?
Yeah, make another podcast of some sort. But that was the idea. All right, real quick, there's a lot to talk about now that I think about it because we've got this whole boosting thing to talk about that's happening to Discord, which is super exciting. And somebody asked me a question about gold ammo, and I thought, okay, I'll answer that again. And then we got to get to reveal picks and stuff like that.
It's super exciting. Oh my God.
Was our conversation about gold ammo earlier actually like live? That go live? Or was Ash going, oh God, kind of like
that was
live?
That was live.
So
lovely.
Okay.
I'm so glad for that.
It's all right. It was funny.
I'm sad. I mean,
Did you burn your bacon?
I mean, it just shows the fact that what I was saying the other day, which is that the idea of gold ammo is almost more of like a conceptual rallying call at this point rather than an actual threat to our economy.
Yeah.
Even if they were to implement it. That being said, they shouldn't implement it.
It's a horn of Gondor or maybe that's the opposite.
No, it's just it typically gets thrown out there as kind of like just a broad-based term that is used for monetization that somehow affects in-game play.
Yeah,
it's probably
as opposed to non-cosmetic.
It's probably the easiest way to score points with people is to be like, oh yeah, I'm not in favor of gold ammo. Oh, that guy's a good guy,
Yeah, it's definitely a crowd pleaser when you say like no gold, it's like no new taxes, it's like a crowd pleaser, but it's not realistic if you have to consider the entire economy. It's like, okay, it's nuanced. Let's look at it. No new taxes, but we'll raise your fees. It's kind of like that kind of disguised language. But the way that it was answered by Mike Azaria, who's out in the audience, I thank you, was an example to me because he was very clear. He was very casual about it. It seemed like he was very relaxed in exactly how to say it. And he said it exactly right, which is, I'm for CCP. Well, I'm not going to characterize what he said, but listen to his interview. Actually, that one was with Jin Tan about that same question. And you'll see like how it should be answered in a way that doesn't really ruffle feathers. But I particularly like it when I hear an answer that is not usual. Not that his was very good, but I immediately ran away from saying that nobody, whatever. I answered what I thought was a more unusual answer, more interesting answer, more detailed answer. And I do not support gold ammo, and I never have supported gold ammo, and I wouldn't buy it if I could, and I think that is a euphemism for pay to win. But Dirk said this best, or was it Ashtarothi? One of these guys was telling me, like, in this place, gold ammo doesn't mean anything because even if you were to sell gold ammo, it could be sold on the secondary market, just like Plex, right? Or just like skill injectors and that kind of stuff. So I thought it was pretty interesting.
I'd like to ask Dirk a question, actually. It'll be really kind of interesting.
Okay.
Dirk, are you fully in favor of playing EVE Online as an Omega rather than an Alpha?
What?
Would you consider yourself to be someone who would basically say to someone, it is better playing EVE Online as an Omega than as an Alpha?
Look, I think that the things that come with Omega, being able to run even one more second account at the same time is like the most beneficial part of it, right?
Right.
Forget about how fast you train, or some of the other limitations and things like that. And maybe it's just the time that I grew up in the game where it was like to not have a second account active at the same time to be able to support the primary or to be able to do something else at the same time that you're doing something with the primary, is like I just couldn't play this game on alpha only mode.
I kind of feel like I'm about to do to Dirk what I did to Ash earlier on. And I'm sorry for this, Dirk, in advance, but
apparently, dude, I'm just like starting on my first coffee. So.
Okay,
take it easy.
So, as an alpha, you can use T2, like, small and medium sized guns and stuff, right? But you can't use T2 large guns. And because of that, kind of technically, you can't use T2 ammo in these T2 large guns, right? So, technically, you have to pay CCP a premium to be able to use T2 ammo and large guns. Yep. Doesn't that constitute gold ammo?
I don't know that it constitutes gold ammo. I suppose from an alpha standpoint, you could almost say that Omega is pay to win in some way. Yeah, but it's just like and it is the weird mishmash of things. Like back when monetization was first being initially discussed, right? And like everybody immediately went to quote unquote gold ammo at the time, because that's kind of like the visage that they have in their mind, right? Of what monetization ultimately goes to that makes things bad. Like we didn't have, the only way you played the game was through subscription.
No, I get that. I get that. It was just an interesting kind of, viewpoint on the whole situation. That's all that I was looking.
Dirk,
yeah.
What color is the symbol on the ammo when you can't use it?
What?
What color is Omega?
What color is Omega?
It's gold.
It's gold.
When you can't use the gun, it's a big gold thing on it saying, no, you must pay money to do this thing.
It should be like a gold skull and bones or something.
Big gold dollar sign. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, big dollar sign.
All right. So somebody said there, Sigs, appreciate him watching, is he would quit if they let in gold ammo. What do you guys say to that sort of resistance?
Probably the same thing everybody says to somebody when they say they're going to quit. Yeah, it's like, can I have your stuff? But yeah, I think it is very difficult to look at something like the idea behind gold ammo and things like that in the world of EVE as though this was World of Tanks. Okay, it is not even remotely the same. It's just not the same ballpark at all. It's not even the same friggin' league. Okay. And it is because of the market that we have in this game that whenever somebody considers something like gold anything, and I don't care what you want to say it as, whether it be ammo or whether it be boosters or anything, we've already got higher levels of these things in the game that come from places that maybe you don't actually access them except through the market, but other people do. The example I gave the other day was if they came out with officer ammo in this game that was gotten by, I don't know, doing things in some other part of space or what have you, right? And they put that in. Well, you might not either be able to go do that for one reason or another, or choose to go do that, but somebody does, and it then enters the game, and either they utilize it themselves and now have better ammo than you do, okay, or it goes onto the market where you now have access to it by way of paying for it. I mean,
right.
This is the whole argument behind how gold, almost anything, okay, wouldn't have the same effects in EVE Online that it does someplace else.
So
it's painful to say this, but I have to agree with Omeka in chat. He hits the nail on the head.
God,
Hold on a second while I mute you. There you go. Actually,
wow,
that.
Oh, Victor's in here too. Hold on a second while I mute you as well.
I will say, I do agree, and I was the one that was saying yesterday that the introduction, all it really is an introduction of a new kind of ammo, right, with a different kind of way of getting to it, right? So let's talk about the practical implication of that. It would be obviously you would raise the power level probably to some potential. You'd have it so obviously if you're going to do that kind of thing, you'd make it so that it was a level of Aurum enough that it was a cost level above all of the rest of the ammo for some reason or another, which effectively makes it so that for instance, let's say what gold ammo would be. Like gold ammo would be Tech 2 ammo that you don't need skills for, right? So that would just be a new way to get into ammo into the game. It would probably be more expensive than all the rest. And its real big practical application would be it would make other kinds of specialty ammo cheaper as the demand would go down because this new alternative is being introduced, which is actually the original argument from the very first time when it came to gold gold ravens, right? It wasn't that the gold ravens were more powerful than the other ravens. It was the fact that people legitimately make ravens, right? And so by introducing this magical way of introducing a new system or things into the system, you're actually hurting the people that work to build the original stuff.
Hmm.
Right.
I remember the controversy on that.
I mean, of course, when you get into the market of EVE Online, right, and the supply and demand type of thing, right, you add in a different layer to that. Now it's not just the effort, who's out there running things and buying faction ammo for LP and putting that on the market and things like that, right? Now you have the person that is actually putting up cash money to buy this thing instead of say Plex, because they think that they can get more ISK for their money by putting that on the market. Now, what does that price something like a gold ammo at? It doesn't price it at what the kind of supply is in game from people running anomalies, and therefore there's potentially an open kind of faucet out there for faction ammo. It's now tied to, well, how many people are actually going to use real world money to buy this to then put it on the market to get ISK for it, right? So there's going to be a premium. Now, is that premium even worth what that gold ammo does for you? Maybe for the solo PvP pilot, but you're probably not going to be running massive fleets out there because it's going to be more limited in supply, or would be more limited in supply, and just have such a premium attached to it that I just don't see why it becomes kind of a thing. But again, I'm not saying I'm advocating for it. I'm just not in any way, shape, or form the 2011 Dirk who would have been saying fuck all monetization, it can only be cosmetic.
It would definitely, I mean, it would
You've
be
evolved,
less.
I think they call it.
I don't remember the word you used, but it would be less prolific probably, but it would be more available, right? Because you can magically spawn this ammo anywhere. You wouldn't have to mine the minerals. You wouldn't have to worry about any kind of supply chain, which would be an additional advantage. The thing that I would see is how would it compete with other systems for monetization through Plex, right? So how will it stack up compared to just selling the Plex outright versus buying skins and selling them versus buying clothing and buying and selling them? All of these things, much like all of the rest of the items in the market, generally have some sort of risk and reward, where the things that sell slower generally have a better profit margin. So it's about probably the ammo would be the thing that would sell quickly, but maybe you wouldn't get as much ISK for your Plex as if you did it through some other method, like a skin or something.
I think the line that Omeka was talking about, he made a comment earlier, and also a comment that going back up in the Wayback Machine to Zero Gravitas Banksy, yes. I'll just read what Banksy writes here. Stuff accessed in-game isn't gold ammo. Meta Subcap and Dead Space and Officer mods are not gold ammo, even though it isn't built. It's accessed via gameplay aspects that matters, not whether it was built.
Correct.
Yep.
It is acquired through effort in one way or another,
as opposed to money.
But then again, okay, ISK, Plex. I mean, we've already crossed kind of the Rubicon of everything should be tied to in-game effort, because it's just simply not. Well, we did. I mean, basically with Plex and the way they built out that market right there, they intentionally built it so that, look, there are some people out there that want to, they want to do it this way, and there are other ones out there who just don't have the time. So we're going to give this sort of way for them to be able to acquire disc.
But Bardghost says Plex is not the same as golden ammo would be.
I would say that
it is true. It is like he does have a point there, because like you can purchase Plex, without having to get out your credit card. Like you can use like money like in game in order to get Plex. So in that kind of sense, it is different to all the other kind of aspects of gold ammo that people hate.
I mean, to be fair, McLeod, even in the sense of buying gold ammo with Plex, there is a whole different ballgame between the two, because one is straight up buying something that gives you a stupidly high advantage, which is what gold ammo normally comes with. The other is an Omega account, which gives you some temporary access to stuff.
You're assuming that.
I'm not defending gold ammo, but we don't know what any of the stats would be if it existed, and that's what I try to resist, is reacting that it is the end of the world before you know anything about it. But again, we're talking about the concept of it being different than Plex.
Historically, when CCP has monetized something like ammo, it has been to remove skills requirements to use it rather than absolute like increase in power. Which is actually, ironically, the Gnosis and that whole line is is literally gold chips, which I find pretty funny, although they've never monetized it. My example, so here's an idea. What if we don't get any more events, right? We have no more like seasonal events. And so CCP puts all of the agency drugs on the Aurum store. And so now if anybody wants to get agency drugs, they just buy them on the Aurum store and sell them on the market. Like that would be the equivalent, right?
Yeah. Damage increases, tanking increases, all literally only available via buying it through Aurum. Yeah.
All right. So Pando is saying to make more money, they need to get more players, not get more out of the existing players. Stop this gold ammo BS, please. Squid.
I mean, he's right. If they go down the gold ammo train, they risk losing players.
No, nobody is saying
it is true.
Nobody's saying they should go down it. It's more like, hey, don't have knee-jerk reactions. But nobody's saying we should do that.
Yeah,
but
anybody who is like late into this conversation, this isn't a conversation as to whether CCP should or shouldn't do gold ammo in any way, shape, or form. This started off basically as a conversation as to the differences between, being an Omega versus being an Alpha, and whether that has any kind of similarities to using gold ammo or not using gold ammo.
Although to be fair, by having this conversation and having voices that sit there and go, this is not 2011, we don't need to have the same sort of, just blanket reaction to it. If CCP is listening, they're going, hey, look, shit's opening up.
let's do this.
The mood has changed.
Yeah. Now is the time.
Moratha actually brings up an interesting point in chat too that kind of shows how fast this whole situation gets out of hand, right? So if you're going to if you're going to define things as buying power or buying things, that are special in Eve, where does that rabbit hole go, right? So he was bringing up the fact that you could get 5 Gnosis blueprints and a CA1 and a CA2 if you bought the collector's edition. Is that buying power? If you bought, X subscriptions, a year-long subscriptions at different times, you've got even more stuff. Is that buying power? If you were an Omega during certain events, you got an additional set of Genolutions. Is that buying power? Like it becomes a very interesting question that is incredibly subjective where the line gets drawn.
Yeah, because we've seen it before, right? With the Concord ships after FanFest 2017, where instead of being 1 per player, it was 1 per account each player had. So players went out and made 10s more accounts when you missed these account guys.
Yeah, I remember that. Also, Moratha points out, so in order to get the Marshal for the first 6 months, you had to have gone to FanFest. You had to buy a ticket.
FanFest and
Is that buying power?
Yeah, Andy Vegas. You had to do both.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. You had to do both. Even worse.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Now
people
it's
that were priced out of those things. But what? They ended up on the market so you could buy it through the market.
Sure, but that's the exact argument that we're making about any of the golden quote unquote items. So that's the point. Like, at what point is the line drawn that this is buying power and this is not?
The
We've
thing with
already-
the marshals
in
is
other words-
eventually they ended up obtainable by in-game means, though, and that was the key thing that made people not so concerned about them in the long run.
Well, it just seems that we've already crossed it. There's a really hard line between basically pay to win. If you pay for something that gives you advantage in the game, it's not all right. But if you can earn it in the game, it's all right. Have we already crossed that line?
I think we've definitely flirted with it.
Yeah, we blurred
Yes.
it.
Okay, so why is this such a big deal? Why is the
Because it was such a
because it's the-
touchstone argument, right? Like, it's a cultural
is.
meme. Like, I hate to use that word because it gets so overused or misused, but it is literally a meme. It is a short
Loot box.
description that means something.
Yeah.
It's the same as throwing out loot boxes or anything like that.
You support loot boxes.
Yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
the
say.
exact same thing. It's like they're like, oh, they introduced loot boxes into Eve when like every exploration can is literally a loot box.
Exactly.
The thing is, people are
Well-
concerned about them going in the way of
The way EA
Battlefront
went with
2.
it.
No,
loot
I
box
understand that, but that isn't what
to
people
win.
were talking about during the last event when they were complaining about it being loot boxes.
Gambling hurts children.
No, they were saying that was very heavily to the lead into what we
That
could
was
be
no.
seeing.
The argument was that it was literally a loot box and that they didn't like it, and I had to argue
Yeah.
with people that the entirety of exploration is a series of loot boxes by that definition.
Marathia, you are unmuted, so if you're muted, it's.
I know. I didn't want to speak over these
Oh
people.
no! Thank you for being polite, but go ahead.
So my reasoning behind why it's a big deal now, but wasn't a big deal then, is if CCP were to come out and say, "Oh, hey, we're going to introduce this, and it's only going to be to the people who have, I don't know, the mystery code," right? Well, back then people looked at it and they went, "Oh, okay, so it's something, it's destroyable, it's finite, it's not pay to win, it's not as obvious as if you were to say, well, we're going to give a special dreadnought that is immune to being tackled, for example, or something random." It's something that was just very granular, and people looked at it, and they looked at it in the same way that they look at ship skins now. Does it matter? No, not really, and they move on. It's not thrown in your face like if you were to say, "Oh, gold ammo, oh, pay to win, oh, only buyable." Like nowadays, if you see it on the website, you can only get this if you do this. Well, that kind of ruffles feathers a lot more than, well, if you feel like it, you could maybe get this tiny little thing that doesn't do much until you start to add it all together. Like the implant set is my biggest pet peeve. By themselves, they're not that great. Together, they're actually pretty darn good. And I assume later will be better still when the rest of them are released.
So
Maybe.
is it a case that we've come to the realization that CCP already knew that if you were going to throw the crustacean into the boiling water, it knows it's fucked, right? But if you put it in the cold water and heat it up, it doesn't realize that.
Bingo.
Like with the crustacean in that particular analogy, by the way.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, that's where
I think-
they've been going.
I think that the reason why every single point is always like defended with mass hysteria is because there is this prevailing belief, which may or may not be correct. I mean, it very well could be correct, that CCP has this goal of over monetizing the situation and like going into like a nightmare situation, and that all of this is just kind of inching in that direction.
The slippery
So
slope.
the idea,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like every step, everybody acts like they're holding the line. Like, this is the point. If we allow this to happen, then that means that the CCP will just go ramp shoot. And some people will argue that that already happened with skill injectors, right? So I think that it doesn't matter how small or big the step is. There will always be people that are saying that this is a breach of what is considered acceptable. And to a certain extent, I can agree with them, because I can look at, for instance, volatile skins and be like, this is a violation of EVE Online, and I can point to it and say, see, look, it killed an entire feature because of it. But you know, and I feel like if we embraced volatile skins, even cursory, we would have gotten more and more of that kind of concept. And I'm glad that that failed for that reason. I wish that CCP would fix that problem. But at the same time, I understand the idea that each step not only represents a step in that direction, but almost like a test to see how well the community will accept a move in that direction.
When will they riot?
Right.
Well, it's funny. I like Victor Fell's comment there. Would you like to use your Doomsday for $199? Like, can you imagine?
That was after my thing about Plex Fuel Doomsdays. When I mean, why not?
Why not make money? Oh my god!
Got to carry Plex in your fleet hangar or whatever. You know?
Yeah,
We're being
sarcastic. We're being sarcastic, guys. Okay, make sure you understand.
We are being sarcastic. Yeah. But there was a dreadnought actually. There was a dreadnought actually the other day that died that had like a whole bunch of Plex in it at one point.
That was a charity thing.
Oh, it was a charity thing. Oh, okay.
Yes,
cool.
He was a cancer survivor doing a charity fleet for his ex-wife or his passed away wife and I guess a friend.
God, now feel bad, McLeod.
Oh, cool, man. Jesus, hey, no. I'm glad it wasn't just some crazy person doing something dumb. Okay. I'm glad it was something.
No, it was on Reddit.
Okay.
Something I want to say in regard to this whole pay to win argument and whatnot is that CCP is a company and they have to both make enough money to support their game, but also enough money to advance it, right? If it's going to stay alive and keep going. I don't know about the rest of you, but I hope to see this game go into its third decade and beyond. It'd be fantastic. Will it? Meh, whatever, but it'd be nice. To do that, they need money, not just for the successful ventures that they take, but the failed ones as well. They have to have a source of income, and subscription model is not going to cut it, right? It's been proven that the subscription model is more or less out the door. So they gotta have something. Now, skins are nice and all, but a model.
They may get a second life with the 64-bit, able to zoom.
They might. They very might. Yeah. That would be nice. I point to Path of Exile as a really good example of a monetization that is not pay to win done right. But they're two different kinds of games, and so what works for them with the skins and whatnot, which is probably where some of the influence came from, isn't going to really work with EVE. EVE's about blowing people up, blowing things up, loss and gain and blah, 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 and making your own story, whereas Path of Exile is a loot grinding type of game. But they need to have something come in to make money. And if CCP were to come out tomorrow and say, hey, we're gonna release a feature, it is in some way pay to win, but not like pay to win in combat. Maybe it allows you to mine a little bit more, or is strictly a PvE focused buff. I'd probably be okay with it. I'm sure a lot of people would probably be okay with it.
But the point is, there's a lot of gray in this area, right? This is not 2011. Don't touch my game. Gold ammo is the death of the game. It's not that era anymore, right?
I think we are. We haven't hit the tipping point of community outrage.
I think there's a degree.
The wider gaming community is ready to flip its shit the minute one company steps over the line.
There's a degree of obscurity that comes with what we have at the moment, right? If to take Dirk's kind of example that he had in chat, like if CCP did actually come in saying like, oh, have an increased rate of fire if you throw us money kind of thing, people would rally and cry about that, because that is really, really obvious and really kind of like in your face, right?
Even mining one.
Even a mining one.
Here, and again, just because of the fact of CCP is a business, right? And CCP is having to change their business model to match with kind of what the overall gaming world, okay, is migrating to out there. For one reason or another. Maybe it's just that they figured out that it is easier to get more money through monetization than it is to try and drive subscriptions when subscriptions are kind of dying off. I sat there and said, well, what would you rather hear from CCP? That subscriptions are going to $20 a month, and Plex is going from 500 to 750 for 30 days of game time, or that they were going to introduce gold ammo into the game. Now, people who are paying subscriptions right now, okay, might sit there and say, well, I'd be paying cash for them, might sit there and go, I'd rather pay the slightly higher price for a subscription, even though you've got to consider the fact that the subgenre is kind of going away. Now, people who are paying for Plex, paying for 30 days right now with Plex, might sit there and go, well, wait a second. Holy crap. Plex is already too damn high based on how I see it. So, and now you're going to do a 50% increase on the number of Plex, which is also going to make the price of Plex itself go even higher.
So it's also going to shrink the player base because there's going to be a certain percentage of the population that decide not to make that increase.
And there's some that just outright can't. Like,
yeah.
I personally would not be able to afford this game if they were to up the cost on how much it would cost to actually sub it. I couldn't. Or I would have to go down to like an alpha character, right? It just isn't feasible for someone like me. And I'm sure there are many others that are the same way.
But Dirk is 100% correct. We are not in the economic position. We're not in the social cultural position. We're not in the game space position as we were in 2004 or even in 2011. A lot of things have changed in the world, and this goes back to throughout EVE, where things that used to be found acceptable are no longer acceptable, and things that were considered to be anathema are starting to be flirted with. It's because the whole world is changing, right? And CCP has to function almost like a guardian to kind of filter, okay, well, this is what's happening in gaming space. This is what's happening to our economy. What impact are we going to allow that to have upon the sandbox? And so kind of translates things in. Okay, well, this game design concept has gained more and more preference. People don't want to do activities that are guaranteed or that run longer than 20 minutes without guarantee. So we're going to develop a thing that guarantees you that it'll only be 20 minutes, but we're going to do it in a very EVE way, and thus Abyss instances are born, right? So and people can argue good or bad, but my point is that in every step of the way, CCP is evaluating, okay, well, this is what's happening in the world. What does it look like? Can it look like something in the EVE universe?
All right. Another few minutes on this, then we'll move on. Just to give you guys a chance to wind up.
Sure.
The real concern, though, right, and it goes back to what I believe you said a minute ago, Dirk. If it comes down to rising the Plex price, rising the game subscription cost versus putting some pay-to-win stuff in, well, some people go, oh, it's pay-to-win, I'll just never touch it, and I'll stick away from fights that have it in. Slowly and surely, it will become mainline doctrine stuff. You have to have a gold ammo in your fit. You have to have this. You have to have that.
Oh, so you become snuff.
And it kills it. It kills most solo PvP off for people. Other people won't enjoy just the line, being a line member in fights. And slowly you lose people, which knocks onto industry, because now you have too many people supplying stuff for not enough people buying, which means newbies and amateurs in the markets get forced out. They have to find something else to do or also quit. And you enter a spiral downwards that could be worse than just raising sub prices.
There's a lot of assumptions in there.
There's a lot of assumptions.
Well,
not really.
Let me throw that out there.
Well, improve it. Yeah, put some numbers on paper.
Right? So agency drugs are just a flat increase, right? So every mainline doctrine should require the top level of agency drugs at all times. A, they don't, and B, if they did, they would require some sort of supply mechanism.
Dad, you're being called.
I was going to say, Ash, as regards to the agency drug thing, I don't know about you guys. I can't tell you the last time that I did not get a Doctrine Dread that did not include an agency drug. Not the highest tier, perhaps, but it absolutely had the second highest tier.
But
as a
were
requirement.
were you required to go run agency events to go get that agency drug?
No, you had to buy it off the market, of course.
You're right. You had to buy it off the market. So now there's people that are willing to do what needs to be done in order to supply it, and there are people that need to have it in order to have their doctrine. So it isn't the fact that everyone's going to have agency. There's just going to be at least
but
one
to
person within
remain
the organization that's willing to buy a whole bunch of them to sell them to his own people. And that's
Well, that's
just
similar
how
to
he,
PI. If you think
Well,
about
it's
PI
similar to
right now,
Plex.
right? Or Plex, yeah.
you know, you sell your
Can't
Plex
really
to your
grind that.
court mate, right? Is that any different than buying a bunch of drugs and selling them to your court mates?
I mean, the other thing you're also skipping over is exactly as Olmeca said earlier. You're just making it appear, okay, which also forces people who would go out and run said agency events, do the mining, do the industry, so on and so forth. It forces them out of the market there again, so
Well,
on and so forth.
all of these are design concerns is my point. You can design something that is brand new, so it's not competing with something else. You know, you could a system that lays on top of the others. And again, I'm not saying that any of these are good ideas. I'm just saying that a lot of the concerns that people are making are based on assumptions about how it would be implemented rather than the actual feature itself.
The
Correct.
actual philosophy of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was kind of the thing where we were saying that, you know, there were a lot of assumptions in Bardco's thing, right? Typically, all of the things he said there went to the potential for worst case design implementation, not necessarily just, okay, look, there is probably a way that this can be done that is, you know, not got a whole lot of negatives associated with it.
Sure, maybe the first few.
The question is, do we believe that they could do that?
The first few implementations, yes. But as CCP sees they can make money, they will get more and more brazen with it.
Because that
just
totally
like
hasn't happened before in every other game.
As well, yes, Victor, it's happened before. My assumptions are, yes, assumptions
but
based on
CCP,
There's no
history
buts
from
in
other
that, Rob,
games.
but
seriously.
CCP is not. CCP is an innovator. They're not necessarily following.
Not
what
really.
everybody
So
else
is
does.
Apple. They still charge stupid prices for crap. I'm sorry, I've been listening to this. I've kind of had enough at this point, and no, guys, just no on this.
Is there an example?
Playing
No,
devil's
what? It's
advocate.
like, no,
Is there
no,
an
no, it's
example of a game
discussion.
out there? I mean, is there an example of a game out there? Okay, you know, that is not a World of Tanks type of situation with something like gold ammo, right? You know, where
I'll be
things
back
are not
in
account
5, 10.
bound, and you know there is a robust market internally, you know, for these things to translate to not just the money buyer themselves, but into the game's economy to where it is
Somebody
being
just
able.
said it in text for you, Dirk.
Black
Yep.
Desert Online, okay, and
bad example.
and the effect there is what?
$1 billion in gross.
Sure, $1 billion in gross.
And how many
Mainly
people?
an Eastern-only focused
How many
market.
people play that game?
Yeah, I would like to say
Sure.
that, you know,
It's not Eve.
Matt,
It
it's an
shouldn't be.
Eastern-facing market.
I got a
The Western
better
players barely play it.
Go ahead, Matthew.
I've got a better example. For those of you who know of Entropia as a game with a monetization, marketization, that one's a little different and a little unique in its own right.
Because wasn't there also money coming out?
Money can go in and money can go out. However, in order to really even start that game after like the first couple of hours, you basically have to put money in to get started. You have to. And then once you've done that, then you can kind of self-sustain and go along. You know, similar to a subscription, I guess you could say. But that's like the only game I can think of dozens where there's a pay-to-win scheme that isn't just crippling. The
And it's
one
only
out
the
of
parent
hundreds.
company.
I'm just saying, I don't think you can look at CCP as any other gaming company. I think they've proven that over the years. They're not like any other
No,
gaming
they're not.
company. Yeah.
I mean,
I would like.
that's
thing is
both
they
a good
are.
thing and a bad thing, though.
Right.
They have followed the trend. They haven't set the trend.
If you say so, but I don't agree.
Well, wait,
But
hold on.
I wouldn't
whoa.
I wouldn't say they follow the trend
Let me-
because, like, I mean, if
let
they
me
follow
ask you
the trend,
this.
they've had loot boxes and shit, but they haven't.
Oop, phone call.
That's where they're trying to go with events. So,
Well, I mean, there's
Well, they're trying to do a lot of
there's
things.
so much more. there's so much more wrong with loot boxes than just like the kind of like, you know, paying for something that you're not entirely certain what you're going to get kind of thing. Like there's a whole lot more wrong with loot boxes than just, you know, the mechanical aspect of it.
So
I mean, to be fair, the mechanical aspect isn't really even the problem.
I was going to actually give another thing before I got that weird phone call. When you say that CCP is not really the trendsetter on a lot of things, let me ask you, who was the first game developer that had more than just 1,000 people playing their game to introduce a means to pay for your subscription through in-game means? And don't say World of Warcraft because they weren't.
Right.
But World of Warcraft
It was
the first
between
MMO.
Eve, RuneScape, and one other game that
Wasn't
all
it?
come out around the same time.
Right. But the only one of those that actually pushed the envelope on the whole, well, you can pay for your subscription through in-game means was Eve. They were the one that popularized it. And then, several years later, World of Warcraft went, that's a good idea. And they adopted it and so on and so forth.
There's a lot of things.
Sure.
There are
CCP is-
several things. Yeah. The market system that Eve has, the player-driven market economy that Eve have, is completely different from every other game. You do have a centralized hub in the sense of because you have JITA and whatnot, but the way that the interactions work, how many games are you legally allowed to scam somebody else?
Here's the difference, though, Marafia, in what you're saying. One is this is in-game stuff you're talking about, okay? When they have been doing out-of-game, real-life money, cosmetic, stuff like that, they have been behind the trend. Now, yes, okay, Noisy's correct. Right. Eve did it before RuneScape on the paying for in-game methods.
They try things. If you talk to Carneros or anybody who's been with CCP, they experiment. They try to like look at things, and it's a lab, right? It's a lab trying to figure out how to get players in this place.
And again, like a lab, they fail sometimes.
Yeah, and they fail sometimes spectacularly. Sometimes they meet up against resistance. Eve is not a typical game. I think there's a lot of people who are invested in it and a lot of people who want to invest in it. For those conditions to be right, they have to see a future. And so it's very, and people protect that. They protect their investment and they protect their potential investment. So people get really upset. And I think CCP recoils a lot of times when it feels like it's maybe damaging, and some of their experiments are damaging the player base, because at the end of it all, the way this game improves is to get more people to enjoy it. And so to do that, how do you lure in people that are out there that like the idea of Eve but can't commit the time to it? They're not going to wake up at 3 a.m. to defend a star base. How do we get players like that can fit this game into their real life? Those are the kinds of things. Those are the kinds of things that I think are more important than this, 1 point of damage, gold ammo or not. This whole thing about monetization is, I understand the boundaries of it, but it's complex. And I think that we don't serve ourselves very well when we just have knee-jerk reactions about it. I mean, I think there needs to be some experimentation. There needs to be some looking at how to monetize if they want to, if they need to. But as long as it doesn't hurt the player base and as long as it doesn't hurt the potential player base, then I'm okay with it. Because that's your real, that's what Pando said, and that's what I agree with. That's your real moneymaker, right? More people playing this game is the moneymaker.
The issue is stuff like golden ammo is normally the kind of pay to win that will drastically hurt the player base. That's why there is the knee jerk. That's why the knee jerk won't go.
I would agree with you if this was 2011 and people weaponized it and mischaracterized it and did all that. Then yes, you're going to hurt the player base. But that's the players along with CCP hurting the player base. I don't think it's just CCP.
You're gonna cannibalize.
Hysteria causes problems, guys. I think it does. I think we've seen it in the past.
It's not that. It's like you said a minute ago, right? People are protective of the investment they have put into the game. A pay-to-win style ammo renders most of what they have done moot in the long run.
All right. Yeah, pay-to-win
I just
ammo, not a good idea, sure.
I'd just like to say right now that I apologize for even bringing this situation.
Yeah. This
It
was
literally
not
came
even-
up as a joke.
Not on. Let's move on. Not on the. I'm going to do some muting.
Let's move on to skill injectors.
Yeah. Now
Oh,
skill
God.
injectors.
That was a mistake.
All right. We'll talk about something else. Actually, let's go through this list because I compiled a list of people I think you should vote for. Does it matter? Only you can decide that out there. This is a list that I put together because clearly there is no block that me and some of these people are on. So a voter recommendation from me, Matterall, not from Talking in Stations. Talking in Stations is separate and they do their own thing and they have their own rules. And as I showed you earlier before when McLeod and I were talking, that even my own campaign runs into a lot of friction with Talking in Station when it comes to being fair. So that said, Talking Station, totally separate. I want to make sure that's clear. All right, and now we get to the Matterall picks for CSM 14. Who do you guys think is number one? Yeah,
I think for Matterall's pick, it's probably Matterall to start off with.
We'll find out because we're going to go backwards.
Like if Matterall isn't number one on Matterall's picks, there's something wrong there.
Matterall had to trade out his own number one for somebody else.
I'm going on record to state that I'm sure that Bunny is in the top 5.
We shall see. Okay, so you guys can guess number 10. Who is number 10? And I'm sorry that there are only 10 spots. I would have picked more, but well, actually, should we do honorable mentions first, or should we go 10 to 1 and then honorable mentions?
You should go 10. You should go 10 to 2, and then at 2 do honorable mentions, like every other really good top.
I'll do
10 list.
I'll do 10 to 5, 10 to 5, and then we do honorable mentions, and then we do the. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Okay, so number 10. At number 10, somebody that I wanted to support that I really don't know how to support this person, but I think he's clearly in love with EVE Online like I am, and so this is my number 10 choice. And again, I'm sorry, I'll explain later why this is in the order it is, but Manic Velocity. So Manic is a streamer, but he's also been he's got high exposure because he's also been the player leading FanFest, and he's he's out there and he does a lot of really good humor stuff. You guys help me out. You guys got totally quiet. What do you guys think?
This is your freaking list, man.
Right,
what are we gonna do? Sit here and either shit or hype on?
You should say yes or no, or are you guys in agreement?
It's your list. I mean,
it's true.
I
think he's
nice
a little
things,
bit better.
Nice things of Manic Velocity. Let's put it that way. Say.
Okay, I was gonna say something nice. Honestly, you have such low opinions of what my opinion is going to be of somebody. Anyway, what I was going to say was I mean, to be fair, a lot of former or current and former CSMs basically say that one of the things that takes so much time for new CSMs to sort of actually to actually sort of show their worth as a member of the CSM is to kind of get up to speed with being, well, I wouldn't say chummy or pally with CCP, but getting to know CCP and getting to know the sort of the devs and sort of having a good rapport with them. Manic already has that. Manic already has a really good rapport with a lot of CSMs. So a lot of CCPers. So he's already halfway there on that. So having him as on the top 10, that makes sense.
And I've interfered with him and criticized him in the past for stuff that was probably not his fault actually, but it was more consider it like a media jealousy or something. But I like this guy. I think he's a good guy and he has a lot of heart for the game. And I think he really won me over when he was sad about the passing away of who's the singer of Prodigy. Anyway, yeah, so I felt bad for him. Okay, so Manic Velocity coming in on that list at number 10. Number 9 is guys guess. We'll make this a game because what the hell else can we do? So type in who you think number 9 is, and or say who you guys think number 9 is. This is somebody who is very articulate, and I've met him in real life and talked with him, and he's articulate in real life too. And besides that, he's 6 foot, like gigantic. So this guy also happens.
So it's not Aaron.
Right. All right, and concentration gets it. It is Jurius Doctor at number 9. Jurius actually, when I listened to his when I listened to his interviews, I was really like impressed with his thoughts and stuff like that. Sometimes I think his thoughts are too big; they bloom into these giant things. That's not unlike me. But I get it. He knows a lot, talks a lot, has a lot of thinking behind what he's saying, and I think in real life he's a considerable person as well. Okay. Also part of Talking in Station's crew. We're happy to have him around.
Note.
Yeah, I should put a different color or something. Okay, number 8. Number 8. Who do you guys think it is? This is somebody I like a great deal. This is somebody I've met in real life at eVegas, and I'll tell you a little story about him, and I hope it's okay to do that. But here we go. Number 8 is Mike Azaria. Now, Mike has been CSM before, and so you can see, looking through the minutes, some of the stuff that he said in the past. You also have you've seen him on podcasts and stuff like that, and he's one of these guys that does a lot of stuff that is for other people. So he drives around high sec with ships inside of either a freighter or some kind of a ship, and he hands them out to new players and stuff. And it seems to me like I don't know, it's kind of like an ice cream man. Is that weird? But he brings little delights to new players, and I think that's pretty funny. But actually behind all that very simplistic humor and stuff is a pretty sharp mind, a smart guy. I think he's
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? We're at number 8 with Mike Azaria. Before that, number 10 was Manic Velocity. Number 9 is Jurius Doctor. And now we're at Mike Azaria. So Mike, high-sec guy, very likable, and I think he's actually a very, very sharp guy. And the little story I want to tell you, because I think it's important for us people that are parents, is when we look at somebody, we look at their child to see what they're like, and then we know what kind of parent this is at home behind closed doors. And he has, I think his daughter came to Vegas with him. She was a grown daughter, and she was going to do other stuff, but it was neat, first of all, that, his family came with him to Las Vegas. I thought that was pretty cool to share that time with your family instead of go there alone and, like I do. But anyway, so he and I, because I really liked the guy, went out and had dinner just across the way because there was not much to do, and she tagged along. And the one thing that always impressed me, and I always think back to this, was there was a seat there. There was a seat there because it was kind of crowded, and there was only 3 seats, and one of them was facing towards the door. It was a very undesirable seat. So there were 2 good seats and 1 really bad seat. And we ordered, and she went to sit down first, and then Mike and I came over there, and she took the bad seat. And I was just like, that's so thoughtful. And if she's the daughter of Mike Azaria, and I've talked to Mike a few times, he raised a daughter like that. He's a very thoughtful guy too. So for me, it sticks into my head that somebody, took the bad seat so that other 2 people didn't have to. I thought that was an amazing sign of respect to her father.
What was the bad seat?
It was,
Was it like the seat next to me or something? Or
No. Like, no. I would warn any young lady, don't sit next to Dirk right there. It's like he's going to find a way to offend you. I'm just kidding.
The thing about Mike Azaria is that he stopped being on the CSM because of his real life concerns. And then his real life concerns was he literally battled with cancer, and I think won, right? Because he's coming back into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy, he gave up, he gave a lot of energy into the game. He still gives a lot of energy into the game. And the fact that he's wanting to run again, in my opinion, gives me a certain amount of respect for the man just by itself.
Right.
I mean, he's been on there before. He has the experience, from what was it, 4 terms or something like that, and is now sort of coming back out of retirement, from the CSM, for that. So, I mean, and look, for all you high sec people out there and things like that, he is straight up high sec, and but he's not the type where it's just like eliminate all risk and all that kind of stuff. He's pretty freaking fair minded, and in that regard. And again, I think the experience does somewhat matter there.
I'm pretty sure he runs the longest running newbie friendly organization that's basically ran by one person. He does the Magic School Bus. I don't know if has anybody talked about that yet?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay, well, yeah. So he's been doing that longer than basically anybody.
We called him the high sec ice cream man. I don't know if that was a good thing though, but yeah. All right, Mike Azaria at number 8. Good guy, very well liked. Okay, number 7 is somebody I also know in real life. Not very well, but we've spent a few car trips together and stuff like that, and who I actually like very much. And so let me, this is somebody I think thinks about the game in very high level ways, much higher than, even I do. And here it is. Can you guys guess who this is? This is somebody who is popular among his people. He has a lot of people, and he's a very strategic thinker and a smart guy and very pleasant, like a very pleasant guy. And here it is. Mittens, good guess. And all right, Weilmert has it. Number 7 is Gobbins. He is the leader of Pandemic Horde, which are thousands of guys. He is actually, if you look at the strategy that he is pursuing, is working. Now, not to say that he came up with the strategy all himself, but whatever he has decided to do seems to be working. So Horde is in good hands with Gobbins. I know they take a ton of criticism, Horde, from the Imperium, but that's a chief rival, in my opinion. As the future of this game starts to settle, it really looks like Horde is in a strong position and getting stronger. Interesting to watch what they do. I think there's a lot of excitement over there, but I'm not there, so I don't know, but it seems so. But Gobbins, as a person, very thoughtful, incredibly smart, very nice man, really... he has fantastic manners and ways of speaking and stuff like that. He may have had, he was also an Alliance Tournament FC. So he was, and I'm sure, he knows how to play the social game, knows how to play the forums game and stuff like that. So whatever his reputation was, being a little bit trolly or whatever, I haven't seen any evidence of that. He's just lovely. So that's Gobbins, the leader of Horde at number 7 there. Anybody got anything else to say about that? All right. So, next one is, I'll just say, Billy. Billy, actually, I think Billy more than anybody is resuscitated. I know other people can get credit like Dur for bringing in Billy or bringing in Pro God, but I think Billy is right there at the top of the list as resuscitated test from near-death experience to an Empire.
Good job, Matterall. You showcase finally the 3 types of people on the planet: those that can count and those that cannot.
Oh,
you missed 6, by the way.
Oh, you know what? Slides got. Sorry, it wasn't his turn. Oops. I had shuffled the slides and I misshuffled those. My bad. Sad trombone. Cornac Fire Fist is Test. He has a blog. I think he writes about some stuff. But yeah, there you go. Cornac is at number 6.
And I think he writes some stuff. By the way, he's number 6 on my ballot.
I screwed that up. Number 5 is Billy.
It's an automotive blog, but
Yeah. Billy, again, really brought Tess back to life. I think he's proven to be a strong leader for his group and really taken him through some trials in 2018 where they were getting attacked. And they continue to be attacked. But, he's somebody that He's somebody that's shown a lot of in-game leadership and knowledge of the game as well. But I also think, you know, he understands high sec. I mean, he's very much a null sec player, but he understands the need for high sec, not to be just a funnel into null sec, which some people believe. So that was heartening to see.
Well, he has to understand high sec because they have a keep star in high sec. So, like, it's part and parcel of you know, having it there, right? Like, you need to know what's going on in high sec and how to deal with stuff in high sec if you have a structure of that kind of size in there.
Yeah. All right. So the number generator, yeah, it's a random number generator. That's how these are getting selected. What I want to do now, because we're in the top 5, essentially, we're going to be in the top 4 in a second, is I wanted to go to honorable mentions so that it's not crazy. So here are the honorable mentions.
Are you going to honorable mention the other 36 people that are running? Or
No, just a few. Just a few. Actually, I went through the list and I just, if you're not honorable mentioned or on my list, it just means I don't know you well enough to know that you can sit in the room and talk to CCP about EVE Online. So
I'm just waiting for Matterall to honorable mention himself.
yeah, I was going to honorable mention myself. My original one had me as an honorable mention.
I knew it. I called it.
It's like he recused himself.
Yeah. So yeah, so some of these guys, Blazing Bunny and CFC, you can see him all through Talking in Stations Discord. He's been showing up there a lot lately, so check that out. Omeka Gold, I think, is a standout this year. He's captured the imagination of Reddit. I've talked to him, and I like him. I didn't know him before. I just knew a little bit about his reputation, and he's a whaler, he says, which means that he goes after big ships and stuff like that. I again didn't know much about him, but you know, I have to respect the amount of courage he has to jump into the race and then to be able to talk to the masses like he's talking. He's really capturing a lot of nullsec and PvP attention. So we'll say that. Matthew Dust is Faction Warfare. I really like that guy. I just met him. And I wish there was a chance for Faction Warfare to get in on this, but it just seems so determined by the politics. But yeah, look out for that. Steve Renukin, I love Steve Renukin too. He's been on there a long time. Okay, but he's good. And he's good at talking technology with, or you know, just basically being the technological voice on there. You guys have something to say about Steve?
Yeah, I was just going to say that so prior to Steve, there wasn't a lot of advocacy for the API, and it was in a pretty bad shape. There was no developers that owned it, really. It went for a long time without very many updates. Crest basically came and went without any real implementation. And so I know that Fuzzy Steve is not the only advocate for API anymore. He has been the primary advocate for the API. I personally strongly recommend him, but I would say that if anything, we need more people advocating for our third-party development tools. Obviously, there's a big like thing about the difference between botting and like just standard alliance management tools or even character management tools, and that line needs to be drawn. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a robust ESI that gives us good information and allows us to, better communicate and coordinate with one another.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding like ESI, API, and kind of Steve's sort of role in developing, or at least sort of talking to CSP about it. And that is like, I mean, I'm definitely one of those people who did, fool around with the API when it was before, when it was like a, old school API before it actually turned into
Let's
easy.
make this quick. It's kind of off topic, but go ahead.
Okay. But like, when it went to ESI, like it shut off a lot of people who were able to use it back when it was the old API. I'm kind of wondering, like, how do people kind of feel the accessibility of their APIs or ESI service now compared to previously, and is that better or worse considering what sort of things we can do with ESI as opposed to API?
That sounds like a topic for a show.
Yeah, different topic.
Like that is a huge can of worms, unfortunately.
All right,
It's a
rounding
very
out.
nuanced.
Cutting you off. Rounding off the honorable mention.
Mute him.
I want Skitch, very popular. I don't know that much about him, but he's very popular, and from what I've heard about him, I like him. Sword Dragon, a big time former CSM, incumbent CSM, and a big time alliance leader over many years. But my favorite player is Cacique Yuhas, who is a Cuban player, and I just love his story because he literally, I mean, again, he loves this game more than I do, and I love this game. He's he's in a situation where he can't be online all the time, so he has limited amount of internet bandwidth from Cuba, and him and his friend share it, and so they don't have time to grind. They really just have time to kind of play, and then their time runs out. And the fact that they don't have any Spanish localization, which is a problem, 400 million Spanish speakers in this world, CCP, listen up, that he and his friend overcome that, and they overcome it with a lot of genuine enthusiasm for EVE Online. It's just fantastic.
Since we already allowed one derailment, have we talked about the new Twitch rewards?
No.
Okay, so they just came out now. No. So they just announced CCP. If you have Twitch Prime, you can redeem a thing that gives you 150,000 skill points, a free Synesis, and a brand new purple skin for only Twitch Prime subscribers. So if you are a Twitch, no, if you have like Twitch Prime gives out regular rewards for all different kinds of video games, like free stuff for Heroes of the Storm and all that stuff. It just happens to be that CCP is now doing their promotion. So if you have Twitch Prime, you should have a little crown in the upper right hand corner of your Twitch account, and it should have a little number, and you can open it, and it should have an offer from EVE Online for a free Synesis skin, 150,000 skill points, and another Synesis.
I would have never have thought that I would have seen EVE Online in that particular thing. That's interesting.
Looking. Is that pay to win?
Well, Synesis are literally gold ships, so they've carved out the SOCT ships to be like their special ships that they only give away by offers.
All right. Okay, so Cacique Yuhas probably doesn't stand a chance in CSM, but that's the kind of player that I'm glad that we make content for players like that. Awesome. Whew. Okay, now for the top 4 positions.
Dum, da, 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 da.
All right, this is somebody that I've met in real life. Many of you have. A lovely person, and somebody that quietly goes about making things better for other people. Can you guys guess who that is? Who's that sound like?
Zenuria.
Keep guessing, guys. Not that Zenuria is wrong, but
Digital Ebola.
I don't know who that is. I don't want to know who that is.
Oh, thanks, Buttercup, for the Twitch Prime stuff.
Yeah, just saying thank you there.
Okay, now that you've asked the question, my brain has gone totally blank, honestly.
And somebody who I happen to know is a smart professional and a good guy all around. And so here is number 4, Dunk Dinko.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Nice guy. Out of Brave Newbies, and has never left them for, more important places. He's kind of stuck with his guys when he found what he wanted to. He plays the game the same way I do, as a real hobby, and it's nice to see that he's that he actually gets in there. He actually plays the game, and he actually enjoys some of the non-sexy PvP stuff as well as that. So it's good to see that kind of diversity in the way that he approaches the game. So good guy, and would make a good CSM. Dunk Dinkle at number 4. Okay, and
I fully support that. That's Dunk's an awesome dude.
Yeah. So number 3, this is someone I've been acquainted with now for a few years. Actually, I talked to this guy before he was anybody that anybody'd heard of outside of his own group, and I immediately liked him because he was somebody that just talked straight for better or for worse. And I didn't feel like he was always trying to make himself look good. So this is Killer B.
It's not Arathon.
This is Killer B, who's number 3 on the list of Matterall's picks. And, what can I say about the guy? He's over the years delivered a ton of information through talking in stations to the crowd. And you can't not appreciate that as players, but also as people who put on the shows, but also as players. He's the one that tells you the truth about what's going on, whether it's good or bad. And I feel that he's the same way. He's a smart young man, and he's been on CSM before. He's running for re-election, so that's Killer B. Okay, it's down to the last 2, and I might be in one of these 2, or I might not. Depends on when I wrote this. It goes back.
I'd like to say thank you to is it Zhao Bei 888? I think that's how you pronounce it.
Zhao Bei.
Yes, for the Twitch Prime sub. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 2 is somebody that I think needs to be on the CSM, maybe even more than I do, and I hope you support him. I genuinely mean it. Exuki, who is a wormhole candidate. Let's say the wormhole candidate, the one has most recognition. So Exuki's, he's just a guy that knows a lot about the game. It's not just wormholes that he knows about, but there's not a thing that I've ever asked him about wormholes that he didn't have an exceptionally deep explanation for. And that's impressive. And, I was in Adhocracy early on when it started. I was not a good wormholer, but the way that they organized themselves in Adhocracy back in 2009, when wormholes had just come out, or they were around, I think 2010. It was amazing how these guys think. It's so different and so precise, and I just have to respect that. There is a conflict between nullsec and wormholers in that nullsec's like, you guys can't have anything that we can't take away. And the initiative proved that when they went in and took out the biggest wormhole group there was and just laid waste to the place. And that was an ugly moment for wormholers, whether they liked Hard Knocks or not. It was a reminder that nullsec, enough people can essentially impose their will. And the reason... What?
I was going to say, well, yeah, give us a year and we can get it done to some degree.
Yeah.
Because it did take a year to set up, by the way.
On a long enough timeline, everything burns.
Right, but the point is that there's a lot of the smugness coming off initiative, and there was some smugness, was that, wormholers think they're so good at the game and this and that. And I think it's because wormholers... when they talk about the game, they consider themselves excellent pilots. You have to pilot your ship. You have to what you do. No, it's not a discussion. Not right now.
It is a discussion. It is a discussion.
No, not right now. I'm trying to get this out.
Of course it is.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, well, the thing is, it wasn't a case of like, let's be smug and see, like, that you can't. You can't consider yourself to not be touched. It was a case of, all wormholers, love, rolling a wormhole into null and then coming and harassing us, kind of thing, from a position of almost absolute security, right? Because until us going into Rage to take on Hard Knocks, like, there wasn't really any nullsec group that went into a wormhole to basically take the fight to them. So they always, wormholers always, strolled out into nullsec and hit stuff from a relative safety to some degree, and we just basically were reacting to that.
I got you. Okay, I see why you objected, and I see why you objected. 1 second. That's the bell. I see why you objected.
Bat phone.
Yeah, hold on. I guess I have to... Do you guys have problems with, like, spam callers? Because, oh my God.
Yes, okay. And it's getting worse and worse.
It's terrible.
Like, legitimately.
Hold on.
A hammer works really well.
So I can see why you interrupted me, and because I was trying to talk about, like, how nullsec sees wormholers, not how initiative necessarily sees wormholers. I just meant there was some snug off initiative because there's smug off all nullsec when they talk about wormholers at who's best at this game kind of thing. Okay, so initiative...
All X when talking about why.
Yeah, Initiative was amazing in the way that they had executed and also planned that invasion, and that it was the first of its kind. That's why we covered it live for three days over a period of like 2 weeks. So this is not about Initiative. It's more about how wormholers are considered people who think they're really good at the game. It turns out they're really good at the game. Like, they're really good at this game. They're
And Exuki specifically is really good at both knowing the game and also really good at just being an approachable person, and also being someone who, it seems, even, like like people who are enemies of them in wormholes can still talk to, which is a good thing. That is what you want from a wormhole CSM.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting going on in the wormhole. The people who play in wormholes, I think their groups have tight bonds. Like, they're very attached to one another because they have to be. There's more danger out there, which is an interesting lesson for everybody. When things become too safe, do the bonds loosen up? But in wormhole space, where things are much more on the line, you can see that there's a lot more as a commitment to one another, and that's really interesting to see. So Exuki, again, to talk about him, is a fantastic guy, a guy that you can just rely on, which I really like. I said, hey, I want to have more wormhole content. We brought on Kaskora, who did a fantastic job, but she got a little bit busy. And she's still with us and does a lot with us all the time. She's an important part of Talking in Stations. And she's the one that said, Exuki had a podcast. Let's bring him in and do the podcast with Talking in Stations. And now you have Talking in Stations doing a wormhole podcast every other week called The Whole Story. And it's fantastic to hear Exuki. To put that show together, Exuki just kind of came in and put that show together. It was he and McLeod really did that. So he's incredibly reliable, incredibly knowledgeable, and I think he's a pretty nice guy. And also, I think he doesn't think about it, the EVE Online, in the straightaway terms that other people think about it. I mean, he really is impressive in his knowledge.
While I'm not going to comment on like the end game of EVE and what is the end game, I would say that in general, a wormholer has to deal with the most broad spectrum of different things, environments, different kinds of holes, different areas of space. And so, generally speaking, somebody who has spent a lot of time in a wormhole will have a more broader understanding of what EVE is and isn't capable of.
Yeah. So if you're going to vote for good representation, I recommend strongly Exuki, put him on your list as high as you can. And he should be okay. I think he's a lot of people who support him in wormhole space. But wormhole space is also where there's a lot of tension, and people literally won't vote for a candidate that would represent the same gameplay because their tribal instincts are so strong. So if you can look past that, I recommend him. And
so
finally,
who is number one?
Number one. Who would be number one?
It's Aerith, isn't it? You
The
monster.
judge.
Thanks. First, thanks to Herc. Okay, guys, put down. No, actually, you don't have to put down anybody. Cause I literally had to make up my mind about this guy, but because I feel like he's maybe not the right guy for CSM. Maybe that isn't the right avenue for him. And I really like him where he is. But I got to thinking that this guy represents everything that I believe about EVE Online. So I'm putting him as number one. And yes,
I wonder who that might be.
I happen to support Matterall.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
You know what? All jokes aside, I'm proud of you, Matterall. Like, this whole process, you have been you've been separating your Matterall show personality and Matterall CSM candidate very well. So I'm glad that you're at least able to admit that you think that you are the best candidate to be voted on.
Matterall, I just want to personally thank you for winning me a 2 billion bet just now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I just want to tell you, we're this close to losing it. You know, I have gone back and forth about just saying like
the mix-ups in your slide show it.
Yeah, totally. Why on earth would you do the CSM thing? It's like begging to have a job that it doesn't.
Hey,
It's like begging to have a job, and it just doesn't make any sense. And
So is running TIS.
yes, so is running TIS, right? But I think
Yeah.
it needed to happen. I honestly feel like the CSM run just kind of it just needs to happen for the game, not necessarily for me. I want to see, as you've seen, the list of people that I think can help the game get better, and I want to be a part of making the game much more of a virtual space than just a pew pew game, and that's really the whole platform. So if that can happen,
and
that's fine. If it can't happen, that's fine too. Everything is totally fine, but
I honor your sacrifice, Matterall. You are being forced to go to Iceland so that we do not have to.
that's kind of a big consideration. I don't have any ambition to go to Iceland. My vacations are usually different than Iceland.
I don't think many people want to go to Iceland.
oh, that difference between LA and Iceland is going to be beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to go to Iceland if you get on. It's
Enjoy
not,
the Winter Summit.
it's not a requirement that you.
You don't have to go to the summit? I thought you had.
No,
You can teleremote.
No, it's not a requirement to go so that you can sit there and get co-opted by Aerith into goons and selling out NC dot in the process.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Well, we'll see if
Which I would almost think would have been the reason that they would have put you high on the ballot.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like-
if you see Matterall
my.
high on the ballot, that's a problem. That's a big problem. If you see, but no, it's not just the whole Iceland thing. I honestly thought I kept going back and forth about it, and then it just crystallized for me. Yes, the game is now starting to go in the right direction with the abyssal stuff and some of the mutated crafting that's going on. It's a very exciting time. Plus, I think that this CSM is amazing. You can see because everybody's running for it that has a huge name, right? It's very competitive, very, very competitive. But I honestly feel like we're really at a turning point with Hilmar basically focusing on EVE Online, whether he's doing the stuff or not. You heard him at EVE Down Under. He's aware of some of the issues that are going on, and he was very frank about it. But also the funding seems like it's in a settled place, and with a lot of the funding for the purchase of CCP tied to performance pegs, I have a feeling they're open to ideas on how to perform better, how to not just keep the players who are here, but to attract new players. And I want to do whatever I can to help them market this game to players who aren't playing yet. That's my little pitch. But I want to also say...
I'm glad that you're number one pick and you sort of sync perfectly in terms of how you see the game.
Yeah. I also want to express how much I hate this process. CSM elections are garbage, and this...
You'd prefer it to just be a sword in the stone thing and just pull it out,
absolutely. Right? Yeah, lightning from above.
Wait,
just
a feature
fine.
in EVE that sounds fun on the surface, but actually is difficult when actually trying to run the implementation of it. Say it's not so.
Oh, it's not difficult. I just think it's completely lopsided and it's counterintuitive. I have no doubts that people are going to do their duty and vote their team. Heck, I'm asking you to do the same thing. If you're a fan of talking in stations, if you're a fan of all my writing, if you're a fan of my presentations at EVE Online, if you were a fan of my work at INN, or if you were a fan of my work at EVE News 24, then I'm asking you to trust me and say, vote for these guys. So I'm doing the same thing that they're doing. So
I don't really think it's a fan thing though. It's like if you feel that Matterall puts his opinions out there quite a bit. If you feel that Matterall's opinions represents yours, then he makes a good representative for you, right? And the one thing I will say is that no matter who you want to vote for, please vote. Don't let anybody discourage you. Don't listen to the people that are saying that it's all locked down by blocks. The people that are saying that belief only gives those blocks even more power. The only way to make that not true is for everyone to hear that, to say no and vote for somebody else, right? So just vote. That's all that needs to happen. And I keep saying this, and I can't stress this enough. Every single year, not only is it who gets elected that gets paid attention to, but the number of votes that are cast. So in order to show our faith in the system itself, we need more people to vote than, as many people to vote as possible.
By the way, Marathi, did you really just make $2 billion by guessing who it was?
Yes. Why?
That's awesome.
I'll be back in just a second.
All right.
What do you mean by it's counterintuitive? I'm sorry, because I don't see anything about the CSM election being counterintuitive. It's very Eve intuited entirely.
Well, what do you want the result to be, right? What are you looking for in the CSM? What kind of people sitting in those chairs do you want?
Well, everybody wants their vote to count, right? But everybody gets kind of a little bit annoyed when their votes don't translate or don't seem to translate as if like it made a difference. So there's a kind of a sort of a kind of a breakaway from, perceived perceived kind of fuck. How do I describe this? Like, you perceive that you're going to make a difference by voting, and then when it doesn't seem as though it makes a difference, like you kind of get, you kind of think that, it's almost like you decide like, oh, it's not worth it. But it is worth it. Like,
I mean, not everybody's vote. Look, you've got a bunch of options out there, and even with 10 spots on your ballot, not everybody's vote is always going to ultimately count, right? It was counted, but it's not always going to translate into a victory. Just like sometimes when you're shooting a structure, your damage doesn't do anything.
But I would say this: your vote is going to count less if you don't fill every single one of those 1 to 10 spaces. Like, your vote literally counts less if you put like only 5 or 4 or 3 people in. Like, because literally, if the person that you have, like, if the people that you have 1 to 6 like drop off, right, and you have a 7, 8, 9, and 10, then your vote will count. But if you've only filled in 4 and all of those 4 people get knocked off at the, while the kind of process runs, then yes, your vote will not count. So make sure that you put people in 1 through to 10, please.
I mean, if you can. I mean, look, I don't think anybody out there should have a problem being able to find 10 that meet something about what it is they're looking for on the CSM in a field of 40. Like, even those 10, right? You should think of more highly for whatever reason, than the other 36 that are out there. Like, you may completely disagree with ones over there, but kind of disagree with 8, 9, 10, whatever. Like, Noisy and I disagree on this, and he's out there right now. He thinks that, like, you should only vote for those people that you fully freaking agree with, which I can tell you right now, there is not a single candidate running that I 100% fully agree with. I am certain that even people that would be high on my ballot, there are things that we would probably disagree with, and I wouldn't want them necessarily advocating for or against. But I have to go with those people that I feel would best represent the interests of the game, without trying to seek the perfect.
Yeah, it's not a this voting for anything is never a perfect thing. It's always the best of the best. Like, it's a compromise, right? So you have to kind of look at it.
Apparently.
Well, I just want to get back to it. The voting system aside, which is a good voting system, it's not about the mechanics of the vote. It's more the constructs of the representation that concern me, as I've said before. So we don't have to go into it very deep, but it just feels like you want to get representatives.
It's fleet warfare, man.
Hey, Matterall, I gotta ask, how long are you planning on indoctrinating everybody by keeping the Matterall #1 on screen?
Oh, I'm making sure I get
subliminal messaging there.
I'm making sure I get the thumbnail. Yeah, should be blinking. I'll leave it up just a few more minutes.
That's the thing. It is blinking at super high frequency.
It's subliminally blinking. And it's whispering it into your ear at a really, really low volume.
Make it count.
He's been taught by Darren Brown, like he's influencing you, you know, in a subversive way.
Well, I have one last favor to ask for people who are fans of mine is if you're going to vote for me for CSM, do it with your accounts, but also make sure you do it as position number 1. Even if you have other ballots, mark me down as position number 1 because it's without a block, you get wiped out in the first few rounds. So if you don't get those high number 1 votes, you really don't. It doesn't matter if you're on a bunch of ballots and everywhere else. It's really important to be on that number 1. So if you guys want to do me that favor, that's great. If you want to vote for somebody else, that's fine too. But that's what I'm asking for you guys to watch this and listen to it.
Dude, you had all men on there. What's the story with that?
Wow.
I did. I did. You're right. And I think there's a high probability that that's the case. There are Lizard Lizbreath is running for CSM too. I just don't know how she would do in the room. Like, well, look, let's face it. If the guys that we think go into CSM, let's go down the list. You have Aerith, you have Merkel Chen, you have Gobbins, you have Killabee.
At risk of you sticking your foot in your mouth, I'm going to say that Liz Lizardbreath, while I think that she does do, she's a very active member of the community and would be a really good representative. She would be the first to tell you that she's not the only answer. She's mostly running to represent her like style of players. So, if you vote for Mike Azariah, I don't think that she would be too upset. But that being said, she's also worth looking at as a candidate on her own right.
I think there's a lot of us trying to pull some representation towards other parts of the game. I think there's a lot of us doing that. She's one of them, and you're right. Mike is too. Olmeca is too, to some degree, I think. And there's other people who want, more than just, I don't know, the kind of stuff that we have seen CSM talk about in the meetings. Although I don't think they've been particularly bad. I think it's just a frame of mind. You want to try to cover those unseen biases or those unconscious biases where you just assume a thing is a thing. And that's why it's important for Izuki to be in there. He can kind of dispel some of the unconscious bias on behalf of wormholers. And I think on behalf of other types of gameplay, not necessarily low sec or high sec, but other types of gameplay, you need people to dispel just to have different biases so that you have a mixture of biases. You don't have a lot of self-confirmation in the room because everybody has the same play style. Now look at the room. You have Gobbins, you have Killabee, you have Aerith, you have Merkel Chen, you have I don't know who else, but these guys are all big names in EVE Online, and they're all sitting in a room talking to CCP. That is an intimidating situation for anybody to fall into. And so I wonder, like, who can sit in that room, right? Like, who can sit in that room and have the same voice and feel that they can have the same voice as any of these high-profile characters? And that's one of the things I looked at when I selected the list is, who can sit in that room and actually be effective, rather than somebody who can't, I guess. Anything else? No. All right, let's go to the Matterall list.
I'm surprised Aerith wasn't on your list, man. Like, I don't know.
Well, Aerith would be on my list because he's a very tactical thinker in the overall game perspective. He says a lot of things that I agree with on there. I think I've finally gotten to the point where I can't trust him. Is he a CSM person first, or is he a goon first? And I honestly feel like I've gotten to the point now where I don't know if he's lying or not. And at that point, I'm sorry, but if you keep saying that you are a Decepticon, at some point, you can't
You can't be afraid if people believe you. Or you can't be angry if people believe you.
If you
Yeah,
cry
I guess.
wolf, then people expect people to not believe you after a while.
Well, if you tell
Yeah.
everybody you're a wolf, you better expect people to think you're a wolf.
Yeah, I'm not Gur Goons. I've never I've been Gur early Goons because early Goons were coming out of 4chan, and I didn't like 4chan. I don't like what it represented, and I don't like the disease that kind of group. I don't know if it's a group, but that kind of mindset. I think it's a disease like on the internet. It's a disease on free and open communication with one another. To me, it's part of the reason that Facebook fails so bad, in that connection isn't just a good thing on its own. Connection is very dangerous too. So just networking and connecting and putting all those people together is a dangerous thing if the messages that are going out are dangerous messages.
Yeah, I don't believe it was 4chan unless there was some early origination that came out of 4chan. It was something awful.
It was the Something Awful forums.
No, it
Still
was
just as bad.
It was something awful, but the forum guys for Reddit 4chan were actually in Goon Swarm. That's a fact that I think Matani told me himself. So at that point, that was where some of that kind of thinking came out of, that irreverent, we don't make fun of anything kind of stuff. That was early Goon Swarm. Where they've come to where they are today now is completely different. They had cleaned it up, and they cleaned it up better than like Pandemic Legion did. Pandemic Legion suffering under the same kind of trolly, toxic crap they had before. If you looked at during Casino War B, I love that, Dirk. If you looked at during that conflict, some of the worst stuff coming out was not Goon Swarm stuff. It was the people who were coming in and invading them. And we refuse to spotlight people like that. Like, if you're a troll, Talking in Stations will never pay attention to you.
Tissue.
And that's just one of our values. Like, we want to keep the show positive, and we want to keep it, pro sci-fi and all that kind of other stuff. So,
well, then let's get off. Yeah. Let's get off the Something Awful 4chan. Train of thinking, because again, most of the things that you hear. Okay, look. There's the public, kind of persona of Aerith out there, where it's like, look, yeah, he honestly doesn't give a shit if you vote for him or not, because he's got enough votes to get on. It doesn't freaking matter. So he can play that kind of thing. Right. But yeah, based on the things you hear, when these folks sit down at these tables up there, they are not intentionally, at least from others that have said it, from other people from opposing coalitions, sitting there saying these guys, whichever side it is that's talking, are trying to play CCP from a tribal perspective. They may be trying to play it somewhat from a game niche perspective, okay, because that's where they kind of see it. But a lot of them are very broad thinkers about the game in general. And a lot of things have been put forth up there at the CSM that would not inherently benefit their tribe. It would actually work against it.
I would also like to point out that the goons, even when they're in their most gooniness, a lot of their actions are designed to ultimately improve the game.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll discover something that they think is unfair, and if it doesn't get fixed, then they will show everybody how unfair it is.
I was saying, and let me be clear, I am not a Gurgoon guy at all.
Why are you Gurgooning them?
I'm not Gurgooning them. I'm talking about their past.
Wow.
But I'm a
so
huge
harsh,
fan.
Dirk.
I'm a huge fan of Sadus, right? I'm a huge fan of Tuzzy. I like Asher a lot. Jay Amazingness is amazing. These guys are all great. Matani, I like very much. Aerith, I actually like very much. It's more, I was just answering, I can't recommend him for CSM because I actually don't know if he's playing CSM on a meta level or not. I actually lost confidence that he wasn't. So I don't know.
You see, I thought you were just going to say, well, he has enough votes from goons to get in anyway, so it doesn't matter like to be on the list or not.
Yeah, let me cut this short. Somebody asked, are we getting to the Triglavian stuff? And I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. Ashtarothi, are you here?
I am here.
Man, let's change the subject and go towards Triglavian stuff.
It only took like 3 nudges. Jesus.
Sorry,
all right.
was that your alt?
Yeah.
Let me shut off some of this stuff. Okay, my bad. Oh, Marathia's here too. What a bonus.
Why do you think I came in here?
Shoot, sorry. You've been waiting this whole time.
I sure didn't come for the CSM stuff. I don't even vote.
Oh,
wow.
It's totally fine.
Why you say that?
That's totally
After
fine.
all this.
Oh my god. All right.
What's this all about?
So we have entered into what I'm referring to as Invasion Chapter 1, Phase 1, Part 2, which started on Tuesday. We got a message from the Triglavians late on Monday, which suggested that the conduits were coalescing. And starting Tuesday, we got these minor conduits, which really kind of lay out a lot of the groundwork for what this feature is going to ultimately look like. And so what happens is in the middle of the in the foothold system, there are new conduits that appear randomly. 1 second.
Something just randomly appeared.
I need to lock things up. All right, so these conduits randomly appear within the system. Right now, there's only the minor conduits, which causes some interesting problems, which we'll go into in a second. Now, the minor conduits are listed as being for 0 to 3 players. The things that are coming out of them, the Triglavians that are coming out, are in general frigates up to battlecruisers. They come in 3 waves. When you kill the last rat of each wave, the next wave come out. There are definitely anchoring Damoviks. Most of there's usually at least 1 or 2 in each wave, which means you're going to have to deal with scrams right away, which makes them pretty deadly. And I lost a sacrilege very quickly. So if you're not tanked correctly, they will punish you. But at the same time, as long as you're not targeted, then you're pretty much fine. So what's interesting is that when the site is finished, when all 3 waves are destroyed, everyone that's in the site that has contributed basically at all gets split the reward for the site, which is a chunk of LP and a chunk of ISK. It seems like at most it'll be about 15 million ISK and 1,000 LP per site, which is pretty good, but it gets split up. So like these things are so overfarmed that most of the sites are giving only like 5,000 ISK and like 350 LP or something like that. As I said, there's a lot of players in it, and so the chances of you getting attacked is actually relatively low. So there's a lot of people that are running around in like a catalyst with a bunch of salvagers and a single gun just so that they can contribute, get the reward, and still ninja salvage, which is the salvage is still one of the biggest prizes out of all of these sites. So there's there's ways to quote unquote contribute on all different levels, from the ninja salvagers all the way up to the marauders that are able to actually solo these sites if there is such an opportunity. The big disadvantage of these things is, like I said, they only spawn in the footholds, which is the centermost system of any given invasion. And right now, since there's only the minor conduits, it seems like what they're probably going to do is have each of the 3 different tiers of conduits appear on their own timers. So because we only have one of the types of conduits right now, they're only spawning at like 1/3 of the rate. So at any moment, there's only one conduit that's up. And so they're very overfarmed at the moment. But as time goes on and the second and third the second and third tier of conduit comes out, which will both include more players and theoretically be harder, then you'll see a more broader kind of spectrum. So there'll be like the big fleets will be doing their thing, and the solos will do their thing, and there's going to be roaming rats for their thing. And so there's a lot of these different activities. And the LP themselves will gives out the new skins, the new Singularity Storm skins for the Tech 2 ships, as well as the new Triglavian Twilight skins that are black and kind of smoky for all of the different races. Have, I think, 1 ship of each of the T1 classes that has a Twilight version. So all of that's available on the LP store, but also the new data cores and the new skill books. So those things that were extraordinarily expensive last week and caused a lot of those new Tech 2 ships to be even more expensive are now going to drop significantly in price, where instead of you having to get lucky and be the only people that kill the Zoria Triglov or Zoria's Leshek last week, now anyone who clears a single site and gets 1,000 LP will be able to get 5 data cores. So I expect that those prices to be dropping precipitously, as it were.
Worth noting, Ash, killing Zoria wasn't actually the only way to get that skill book. It was also a rare drop from the regular NPCs themselves, as I'm sitting with 2 in my cargo right now.
You're right. But I was using it for shorthand. Instead of getting lucky with a drop, you now can just, finish a site or at least enough sites and get them.
I gotta ask you, what do you think about the whole ninja salvaging mentality and whatnot that's going on? People putting like triple nano Sunesis in there, which hold a lot of stuff to steal all the salvage and get away scot free.
Hashtag emergent gameplay. No, I'm not joking, right? It's play and counterplay.
Okay.
It allows the small people a way to nip at the heels of the bigger person, and the bigger people have all sorts of different techniques that they can do. So a good example was we warped into a site, and another team warped into the a Kronos warped into the site on top of us, and it was right as the site was beginning, and immediately the Kronos micro jump drived, and so he was on the opposite side of the arena, and then all the rats went to him. So now we have to burn 100 kilometers to even start getting to the rats. And I was like, and all of his buddies warped in on him, and now they're fighting. They drew the entire fight away from everybody else, and we're like, oh, you son of a gun. So there are tactics and strategies and plans coming up. The thing is that when you hear people complain about stuff in EVE, be it cloaking camping, ninja salvaging, all this sort of stuff, you got to think about two things. What is the other side thinking? And two, what counterplay is available to that person who is complaining? And I think that at the moment, we're seeing a pretty good separation, because even if you don't get the salvage, you're still going to get the LP. You're still going to get the other stuff. You're going to get some of the salvage, and you're going to get some the loot. Whereas if there was no ability to bring a destroyer and salvage, then basically if you can't bring a T2 cruiser, then this feature has nothing for you as a solo person, which I think would actually be worse.
Wild.
Additionally, it's one of those things where like the market dictates, right? The reason why you're seeing it so prolifically is because we haven't gotten the salvage is brand new. It's not on the market yet. And so the salvage is ridiculously overpriced at the moment. As things stabilize, that profession will be less rewarding, and therefore less people will be doing it. And so then it'll become more about like a team that brings their own salvager as opposed to people that are only running around ninja salvaging.
So I've been running both the regular spawns that just appear, as well as everything else in between, and some other types of gameplay, including ganking people who are running the sites.
Sure.
We've blown up a lot, but I would say that honestly, from having done everything from ninja salvaging all the way up through just outright running it yourself, the quantity of loot that's out there right now is already at a point where it's fairly sufficient. I mean, the price to build, like, let's take the Tech 2, the frigate, the Nurgle, right? The price to build that's only about 300 mil. And yeah, that's expensive, but considering, prices of pirate faction stuff in the past, and that's really what this is it's a Tech 2 pirate faction ship. That's not unreasonable. It really isn't. The price of the skill books is already down to like 200 million isk for the one to build them and 100 for the one to invent them. That's not really bad. And I personally feel that the ability for the ninja salvaging, like you say, MJDing across the field, that's a good idea. But that's not good enough, really. You should be able to shoot somebody who salvages your wreck just as easily as someone who steals from your wreck. You steal a book from a wreck, you get suspect, but salvaging it, you don't, and that's kind of
the
lame.
argument of the ages, right?
I suppose it is.
So I mean, like the counter argument to that would be that like where looting is your kill, is like it's your kill, therefore it's your rights to the spoils. Salvaging is seen more as like cleaning up the space lanes, right?
I guess, but how about if ESS? You think about ESS. In ESS, a large chunk of everybody's in the whole system money gets put somewhere, and someone could come steal it. And the counterplay to that is the ESS itself prevents you from just warping off if you try to steal it. You can be attacked and stopped from stealing it. But as I will use the Sunesis as an example, because it's what I use. A Sunesis has a 2-second align time. You can very easily ninja an entire field of wrecks with that ship, with its huge cargo, and leave before a battleship could even lock you. And that's kind of ridiculous, really.
Let me tackle this problem from a different angle, though, because
Okay.
I think that this is necessary for HiSec to fully function the way it needs to. because a lot of people are talking about, oh, well, high sec needs to be less safe, or high sec needs to be less profitable in order to force people into places like low sec and null sec. And honestly, forcing people that are trying to make money into more dangerous situations just so they can make money, forcing them to do that isn't necessarily going to help.
It's bad gameplay. No,
Right.
that's bad gameplay.
So, but making it so that, yeah, you can go over here and do it safely. But you know what? Your safety also means you don't get to stop other people from interfering with you. If you're upset about that, then go to a place where you can kill other people, and then you can deal with it.
Let me
And
cut,
that's the way it's always
suppose-
been with events.
all right, let me cut in here because this is super interesting, and I think we're going to have more of this when we raid Ashtaroth's stream in just a minute. We can go on and on about this, which would be great. There's one last thing I want to hit, and then we're going to transition out to Ashtaroth's show. And that is some of the cool stuff. And I want to say a big thank you to people in Talking in Stations for boosting us. There's a new thing that's going around Discords, and that is that you can get Nitro, which is something you get for yourself. And one of the things that's part of that package, because you get a bunch of video games and stuff, is that you can boost a server, your favorite server. And a lot of people boosted us and got us really good sound quality. McLeod, are you still in here? Let me check.
Yep, I am.
Tell us a little bit about that boosting and how it's helped us.
So, as standard, Discord servers have kind of a limited bandwidth. It's essentially because Discord hands out servers for free, they have to provide a fairly limited service to basically allow all of their servers to function. When you have a bunch of people boost the server, it basically means that there's a good community on this server. Kind of prioritize better quality to this server. If you that's essentially what you're saying to Discord. And so what we get is higher quality audio in Discord, so which translates to you guys as better quality audio in the streams and in the podcasts. And in doing so, you also get like you can actually see who are boosting the server at the time as well in Discord. It's really good. It's helped us a lot. It's given us a few additional perks. Like, I mean, the kind of the bandwidth, like the kind of the quality increase is fairly significant, because it goes from, I think, at 96 kilobits per second up to level 1 is 128 kilobits per second, which is much better. And then level 2, which we have now thanks to you guys and everyone in Discord, is now 256, which is amazing.
Yes, and so this
you also get loads.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say you also get loads more room for emojis, which I've been trying to get on point with. Matterall kind of hates it a little bit.
Well,
it only kind of almost spurs me on, to be fair.
Yeah, I should probably say nothing. I mean, obviously, I posted my list and I have a lot of negativity on it already. So the less I say, the better, which is probably a good thing. I did want to say this is not a plea for you to do that, for you to buy something that you don't want in order to help Talking in Station. That's not what we're asking here. We're actually just saying thank you for the people that did. And they boosted us to level 2, which was not expected, but I just think it's wonderful that people are willing to support Talking in Stations. And this actually helps us directly because we record off of Discord. We do not record off of Twitch. We do not record off of YouTube. So the higher sound quality will transfer to the podcast, not necessarily to Twitch or YouTube because they crunch their sound down. But always when you get a better signal to begin with, it sounds better later, even if you do crunch it down. So what you'll notice, the people that are nitroed because they have a little purple diamond next to their name, that's something that we did not award. That's something that Discord does. And I'm sure they'll make gazillions of dollars with this thing. But I also want to say, for us to get up to level 2 so quickly, we did it faster than, what was that game?
Well, we didn't do it fast. We did it about the same. Like we went to level 2 at the same time as the official Battlefield 5 server,
Yeah.
Discord server,
Right.
which is
Anyway,
not.
I just think it's
Which
great.
again says nothing about us and says everything about our fans and you guys.
Yeah. So this was just a very big thank you for that. That's really cool, and it's neat to see. And I'm glad that we're going to get better sound. I actually hear the difference. I heard the difference right away when we went to 128, and now at 256. I'm sure it sounds even a little bit better. But that first jump was a very big difference, I think, in sound quality. So hopefully we can.
You cut in and out just the same with 256.
Well, that's just his ability to hold down the
That's
button.
that's not holding the button. That's actually Matterall speaking. He literally cuts out.
Yeah.
At 50 server boost, Matterall won't cut out.
Yes.
Reminded
Keep
me
it going.
What is it, Spaceballs? When the guy's talking on the radio and and then like they make him stop talking on the radio.
That's
and
a
he
great
stuff
scene.
like that.
That whole movie's great.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. Ash, Dirk, McLeod, Marathia. Thanks, guys. For
Do you think the type of people who buy Discord Nitro would also buy gold ammo?
Oh
No.
boy.
I don't know.
Well, I got Discord Nitro for 1 month after not doing it,
No idea.
but I would
Wolf-
never buy gold ammo.
But
We're
that being
full
said,
circle here, guys.
you go get, if you have Twitch Prime, go get your free Synesis, your skin, and your 150,000 skill points, and laugh at everybody about your new pay to win.
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing.
These those bucks.
This is the end of the CSM campaigning for me. I'm not doing any more campaigning after this. So no more CSM talk from me. No more vote for me. I put my list up. I'll put it in a public place, and that's it. I'm not going to really deal with the CSM campaigning anymore. That's over for me. So whether I'm on CSM or not,
Hard push Sunday.
yeah, maybe Sunday, but I don't know. It's definitely not going to show up on the shows. I want to get back to regular programming and talking about other people. That would be great. All right, guys, thanks very much. But stick around. We're going to raid Ashtarothi, and he's going to talk a heck of a lot about how to do these invasions and how to get the most out of them. And he's going to be joined by Marathia, I think.
At least until a group of people show up and suicide gank my.
Don't tempt me. I'll do it.
So it's funny. I wonder personally how much the changes that the CCP made with the systems was to provide a bit of OPSEC for the players, because now if you're in a Triglavian system, you can't read the system name. So if somebody's trying to like hunt down a streamer who's running these sites, it's just a little bit more difficult.
Oh, a little bit of a meta play there. Interesting. Ash, take it away. Have a good time today. And thank you, everybody. Thank you all for watching. See ya.
I'll just hang out in here for until
Comms
I get enough of a fleet to need to move over.
No, stay here if you want. All right. See ya.
Oh, hey, on my stream, I'm being scanned by the Trig right now. They're extremely interested in me. I could fight them.
They're initiating spooky action at a distance.